Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Nashville, Tennessee, it's time for Nashville Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another exciting and informative edition of Nashville Business Radio. Stone Payton here with you this afternoon. You guys are in for a real treat. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast co-founder with Workday Ninja, Alane Boyd. How are you?
Oh, I am great, Stone, and I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I have really been looking forward to this conversation. I got a ton of questions, Alane. We probably won't get to them all, but I think maybe a good place to start is if you could articulate for me and our listeners a little bit of a broad overview, mission, purpose. What are you and your team really out there trying to do for folks?
Man, our mission, and it's been the same since we started, and it's to make workdays easier for people because we're burnt out. We have so many things on our plate. How can we enjoy work and be done with work at the end of the day? So that's what our core mission is. And, that's our purpose. And that's why I started this company, was because I saw what the workday was doing to people and just wanted them to have an easier day so that they can go and do the things that they really want to do and enjoy.
So what's the backstory? How did you get in this line of work doing this kind of, providing this kind of service for these folks?
Such a roller coaster, but I sold my first company in 2018, and I built that company for about 10 years. And we were a social media and reputation agency. I built 2 software platforms, and our niche was with car dealerships. So we did all of this stuff for car dealerships. And the reason I got acquired was because I was such a well-oiled machine with our team. And the private equity companies and companies looking at us were thinking, you've got a skeleton team doing this much work. And I'm going, this isn't a skeleton team. Like they just get their work done. And when we sold, I realized we were unique, that what I built with my business partner and the systems that we had was something special that not every company did. And I thought maybe other companies needed.
Now, if I remember from my notes, you have had 2 successful exits, and you bootstrapped both companies as opposed to going and getting external funding?
Yeah, I did. And, and there's, of course, like a whole bunch of ifs and thens and buts in that, but I was bootstrapped. We did take on an early seed round, and it was such a terrible relationship after 2 years of trying to work with that investor that we actually bought him out. And so we went back to being bootstrapped.
So now that you've been at this a while, helping others and replicating your success and providing that rigor and discipline and structure and repeatable processes and all that, what's the most rewarding about the work? What's the most fun about it for you these days?
Oh gosh. I mean, you start working with a team and you can just tell the energy is being sucked out of them, and they want things to work better. And they're at a point where they're just like, we're going to try anything because I'm exhausted. And then after, some projects are longer. It depends on how many moving pieces there are, how big of a team there is. But when we start getting closer to implementation, you can see the excitement and relief that these team members have. And they always write us. I mean, we keep a log of all the sweet emails that we get written, and of course, like testimonials and things. But these people genuinely are just so excited to have something that they can be proud of and get through their day without being tasked with tedious work, having to put out more fires. And so that's the best reward, is just seeing how we do make a difference and that it's making people's days better.
I'll bet. So have you found yourself gravitating more toward a certain type of business, an industry, a sector, or have you found that you can be pretty agnostic and serve a lot of people in several different arenas?
Well, that's been a learning curve in this business. In my early days of starting, my business partner and I we were coming out of an exit. And so we were just kind of consulting. We were getting bored, not having anything to do. And so we were working with all types of companies, and it really revolved around our expertise. And of course, that's evolved over time. And now we've got a full team. And yes, we have niched down, because when you can do everything for everybody, you're not serving anybody really. You're too much of a generalist. So we've really narrowed that down. And there is a little bit of a team size, revenue scale that plays into it. But a lot of times it's mature businesses, because they have systems, they've got team members, they've got already workflows that they've been doing, even if they are strenuous to the team. So they know the value of if it could improve, how much of an impact that would be. So that's typically the client type. Now, industry does, we're in a bunch of different industries. And so the biggest thing that we have found is that at a core, they use specific project management systems like ClickUp, Asana, or Monday, and they use a CRM like HubSpot or Pipedrive. And these are just examples. There's others that we do, but that's the core pieces. Like, they need to have some software platforms, and that we are experts in those platforms.
All right, let's dive into the work a little bit. Maybe if you could walk us through the process. I'm personally interested in the early stages of, I guess I'll call it an engagement, and maybe you want to apply it to a use case. Of course, you probably don't want to name names, but yeah, let's help us get our arms around what it might look like to work with you guys.
Yeah, so that's perfect. And this is a very common workflow that we do with a lot of businesses. So it's not calling any particular company out. And it's the idea of, you start with a client, a potential client, and you have to create a proposal for them. Well, we do AI and automation so that when it moves to proposal stage in your CRM, it'll auto-generate a proposal based off a template, and use AI in the call notes to generate that proposal, so that you're only having to edit, 10 to 15% of the proposal instead of trying to create it from scratch. So that would be the first step of the customer journey. Then if the customer signs the proposal, the next piece of the automation would then kick off automatically new client onboarding. What needs to happen? A welcome email needs to get sent. Maybe if you're using a project management system, tasks automatically get created for that client for what needs to have happen. After that, maybe an asset folder in Dropbox gets created. And let's see, I love a task. We have this set up for our clients to connect with them on LinkedIn automatically, if in that automation. And then the last piece, and you'd be surprised how often people forget to invoice their clients, but it automatically creates a customer in QuickBooks with a draft invoice. So, these pieces that we don't have to memorize for everything, this can automatically be done. So it takes 2 hours of work that would be done manually down to about 5 minutes in an automated sequence.
Wow. And everything you're describing that you bring to your client systems and help them implement, I'm operating under the impression you're probably eating your own cooking too, right? Like you're probably doing this for your own practice, yes?
Yeah, we drink our Kool-Aid, and it's, and to be honest, I'm glad that you said that. Yes, we do eat our cookies, drink our Kool-Aid. And we were doing this for ourselves. I started writing our very first automations in 2016 with my previous company, because I was getting so frustrated. The sales team, they just want to move on and get their next sale. And so their attention to detail can sometimes be missing. Then I'm seeing this long transition between sales to account management to do all the knowledge transfer. I'm paying an admin to go and manually set up all the things that need to happen. And I was just like, you know what? I'm really frustrated today about all this money I'm seeing just go out the door for my company. And I wrote our first automations, and it just transformed. It would take us on average 2 weeks to onboard a new client back then, because we're waiting on people to do each step, right? And then we got it down to they'd be onboarded almost immediately. And I'm like, wow, I could save that time for my team members. Plus the admin that was doing that, I repurposed her on a more valuable position within the company. So not only did I save her salary, but I'm making money in her new position that she was in. And I just thought, that's what I want to focus on. And so I've been drinking this Kool-Aid for a while, to answer your question.
and I have to believe when you can tighten up and button down systems like that, get them humming, it would have to have a really strong impact on the culture, which then could turn around and strengthen things across the board. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you nailed it. And the culture piece is what I didn't even think would be a result early on. I'm looking at it as a business expense and advantage for us to save that money. But the culture change, and I'll tell you what I saw in 2016 when I started to implement this, that our team went from staying on board for about 6 months to where they were staying on for years because they weren't so burnt out. They didn't feel like they were being pulled in so many directions. Our lifetime value of our client went up. So we weren't losing clients. Let's say that they were staying on for a year, they were staying on indefinitely at that point. And then one of the most interesting pieces is because our employee turnover was reduced and our lifetime value was increasing, the amount of money the client was spending with us was also increasing. And so you just felt this energy in the company that we didn't have before, where things just felt like a drag and we were being rung through the ringer all the time and chaos. And then we just saw it flip flop, where people were so excited. They were cheering each other on whenever we, kept clients on longer and, celebrating anniversaries, and people just got to build longer relationships with each other. The culture really started to thrive.
I got to confess, Alane, I feel like you've been reading my mail, and here's why. Yeah, Lee Cantor, my business partner, and I, we own the Business RadioX network. We've been incredibly blessed. We've made a comfortable living. We've impacted some lives. And just to be perfectly candid, our onboarding is clunky. We have 21 years plus of best practices, and I'm sure buried in there some ways some genuine intellectual property. A lot of it's in Stone's head, a lot of it's in Lee's head, some of it is in the 19 studio partners' heads. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a free. Hey, gang, if you want to get some free consulting and talk to some smart people, get yourself a radio show. Yeah, so
do some interviews,
right? But I'm sure as people begin to have this kind of conversation with you, the light bulb starts to go off a little bit, and you probably have some coachable moments and can probably get a lot of good done pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah. And that's been the fun part is, we bring on a client and they have a very specific need right then. And they want to solve that problem in their workflow or in their team. And it typically does not end at that once we get there, because then they can see the possibilities. They've now had the time to take away some of the layers of the onion and say, hey, could we improve this operation or this workflow? Could we be using technology for this? And so it does grow. And this institutional knowledge piece that you just mentioned between between yourself and your business partner is a huge piece, because when you have knowledge in people's heads, they are the workflow. You have to go to them because they have all the knowledge in them. And so part of what we do is start getting that knowledge out of their head to start getting into a process that people could delegate and have some accountability with, instead of that person always having to be it. And then that's where I don't know if you use Slack internally, but you see Slack messages start to decrease because people don't have to ask you as many questions anymore.
That would be nice, I think. So on the front end of things, and it's a question I often ask the people I have a chance to have a conversation with, how does the whole sales and marketing thing work for a practice like yours, like to have that, to even get a chance to have this conversation? Is it all referrals now that you've been at this as long as you have, or do you have to get out there and shake the trees a little bit like some of the rest of us?
Well, I don't like sitting back and doing anything, waiting around for anything. So early in our business, it was very referral based, and that was comfortable at first. And then once I was tired after I sold my company, and I really just needed a break for a while. And so, when we were just consulting in early days, we were 100% referral based. But now I have, we're talking about operational automation in this conversation so far, but I have a whole nother side of the company where we focus on sales outreach automation. Mm-hmm. And I do a huge piece of that myself, drinking my own Kool-Aid. And then I also train companies on that. And it's, how do you find your target market? And I love using LinkedIn Sales Navigator for this to find your exact target market, find the context that you need. And then I use tools like Limlist or Apollo to do cold outreach to them. And I have a whole automated sequence. So it's not just like one email or one LinkedIn message where they're receiving a number of them. And, there's a lot more to the sales outreach part, but it's actually my favorite part of the company that I lead and enjoy. And then I also do a lot of speaking engagements, and I'm in a few niche industries that I do speaking engagements at. And I see that as a lead generator as well, because people in the audience are my potential customers. And so we've brought in clients from that.
So I know in my world anyway, business talk radio, digital media, on some channels, if you will, there's, I'll call it misinformation. There's some preconceived notions. There's some just downright just off the mark information. So sometimes early in a conversation in our work, we'll have to educate before we can even really consult. Mm-hmm. Do you find with regards to AI and automation and processes and systems and tools and all these wonderful things that you're describing, that sometimes, at least early in the conversation, people come in with a little less than accurate lens on things, and you are kind of in education mode early on?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And AI just made it even worse. There are so many conversations now that we have with a potential client where they are 1,000% convinced that AI can just do everything in their business. And I'm going, no, if that were the case, none of us would work. That is not possible. And so there is an education piece. What could AI alleviate? And also there's a missed understanding of not only what AI can do, but where AI can't do everything, but automation can be a big piece to do things that you don't even need AI for. And so that's a part of the education, is like, you are going to overcomplicate your process by trying to use AI here. You just really need automation. And those two things are different. And we've started creating free tools that companies can go and use to try to start to distill down, what could I do in the beginning? And so automation is a big one. Like, what could you automate? If you're using Calendly and Zoom and Pipedrive CRM and Monday.com, where we've started is like, let's have a tool that gives the education first. And so we have a free tool. You answer 8 questions. It takes less than 30 seconds, and it'll send you a custom report within about 2 minutes to your email with 25 automation ideas that you could put in your business right now based on your software that you use. And so that's been a great just initial piece to the conversation, because they get that report, they get real ideas of what could be automated in their company instead of these bizarre out of like, what they would want to do would be $1 million investment. What could you put in that you could actually afford and get value from in your business? And that's been a big change for us that we've seen in that initial conversation.
So this next question, 100% ulterior motive, and I'll share it with you before I even ask the question. Business RadioX Network, Stone and Lee and team, on the short list, we want to put a physical studio in Nashville. and we have some hypotheses around why we want to do that. But I wanted to ask you, why Nashville for you? What's the business climate like? Or is it just you were there in Nashville and that's just where you are anyway?
Oh gosh, Nashville was actually, so I've been in Nashville for almost 11 years. And I'll tell you why I moved my company there. I started my first company in San Diego, and that's where we were based. We were working with car dealerships all over the country, and my team was getting burnt out with the time zone change. And so I had two things on my mind. One, I wanted to open a central office that team member I could hire from. I could hire a little like less expensive than California cost, and that I could buy a second house as like a getaway house buy some land. In San Diego, you can't buy any land unless you're way out in the outskirts. So I wanted some land and I wanted some water on the property. And I just had these visions, and Nashville hit all the spots. And we've hired the very best people in Tennessee, in the Nashville area. And, I sold that company and I chose to start the next company there because of the environment. People are just so kind. The connections, you're one introduction away from pretty much anybody you want to meet. And I also joined EO Nashville. It stands for Entrepreneurs Organization Nashville. And that CEO environment has been such a good climate, like just investment for me to be in that. And I just would not want to leave that group of people.
Well, that's encouraging. Thank you for that. And I'm sure Nashville appreciates you as well. We'll have to send it to Chamber of Commerce an invoice or something.
Yeah, I know, right? And when I moved, we moved the office. We opened the office in Tennessee, and we offered any San Diego employee, we offered to move them for free to our office in Tennessee. And we had 2 employees that did it. And they've now moved their entire family. Their parents now live there. Their siblings now live there. So it has been a good economic boost for us being there. Small scale, but definitely a benefit.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'd like to switch gears on you for just a moment, if we could. Interest, hobbies, pursuits, passions outside the scope of this work. A lot of my listeners know that I like to hunt, fish, and travel. How about you? Anything you have a tendency to nerd out about other than this kind of work?
Man, I'm the biggest nerd. And when it comes to hobbies, I've probably oversaturated myself, but I love traveling. You and I could talk forever on that one. It sounds like so. Travel. I do leather working. So I make my own leather bags, and I come up with all kinds of stuff. I made myself and my brother a firewood carrier out of leather. So I do that. And I love hiking and mountain biking. I love being outdoors. So and I always try, because I'm doing technology. I'm in front of my computer so much. I've just found that being outside and being active outside is so important for mental health. And so I try to push that on everybody in my family too.
But at least my experience is similar to yours in that, yes, it's good for me and I enjoy it. And I feel like I do get a chance to recharge, but I think everybody wins, because I genuinely believe with all my heart, an afternoon in the woods, it equips me to be of that much better and more service to the people I'm trying to help. And it sounds like you feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we need to give our brains a break and be bored in the outdoors, let our mind wander. And, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, when you're out hunting and you're just sitting around waiting, that's when like ideas pop up. So I always have either a little notebook with me, or even just taking notes on my phone. If I brought my phone with me, is like, that's where your ideas and your good ideas start to bubble up, because you gave your mind a rest. And so I found that that's just really important for me to take that break.
Amen. All right. Before we wrap, I think it would be great, if you're up for it, if we could leave our listeners with a couple pro tips, something to chew on, just to be thinking about. And look, gang, the number one pro tip here is, if any of this interests you, if you recognize any of the symptoms in your organization that these kinds of solutions might address, the number one pro tip is reach out and have a conversation with Alane or somebody on her team. But let's see if we can tide them over with a little something to chew on between now and then, Alane.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think two things that have really just impacted me in business is listening to podcasts and listening to a different perspective. And I've found that I've had to listen to things that aren't in my wheelhouse, because if I listen to things that are in my wheelhouse, I already know those things. I need to push myself to be listening to things outside of it and reading. I read so often. I've got Libby, it's from the library. Every county has Libby in Tennessee, and I put on audiobooks on it. So I've always got an audiobook downloaded. And so it's free, it's by the public library, so you can access it. So if money is a barrier, these things are free on Libby. So I've always got an audiobook, and I'm always reading books. And right now I'm reading one of Nick Saban's books, because even though I'm an avid LSU fan and he left and went to Alabama, what he did in football is incredible. And his players love and adore him. And I'm, as a leader and wanting to be a leader, am I that into football to know everything about football? No, but I love him as a leader. And I think that there could be things that I learned. So I'm reading his book right now. And, I think us, whether you're running a business or you want to grow, I think those things and expanding our knowledge is so important.
I agree 110%. And I'm so glad that I asked. All right. What's the best way for our listeners to learn more, tap into your work, maybe have that conversation with you or someone on your team? Let's leave them with some coordinates.
Yeah. So first way is on LinkedIn. I'm very active. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Alane Boyd. Shoot me a message. I love connecting with people. And then the next thing would be, you can visit our website, workdayninja.com. And we've got 2 free resources. So the one that I mentioned with the 25 free automation ideas that you could put in your business. And then we have a second one for project management tools. A lot of time companies, they feel like maybe I'm in the wrong project management system, or I don't even know where to start. And again, it's super quick. It's just a few questions, and it'll tell you immediately which project management system would be best for you.
Alane, it has been an absolute delight having you on the show this afternoon. Thank you for your insight, your perspective, your enthusiasm. It's been a real shot of fresh air for me. I feel like I've personally learned a ton. I know our listeners have, and clearly you are doing important work and having a great deal of impact on so many that in turn will have impact on others, and it will just keep going forward. Thank you for investing the time to visit with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Stone. This was a lot of fun for me.
My pleasure. All right. Until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Alane Boyd with Workday Ninja, and everyone here at the Business RadioX family, saying we'll see you next time on Nashville Business Radio.